Welcome to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. I'm James Groves, and along with my business partner, Bill DeMent, we want to share our journey as small business owners with you. As owners of Hole in the Wall Drywall Repair, we will attempt to peel back the curtain of owning a small business in the trade service industry and talk about the many adventures of owning a small business. Hey, Bill.
James, good morning to you.
Good morning.
James, we got a good one today.
I think so.
Yeah, I think this is a topic that's long overdue.
Yeah.
We actually talk about it a lot around the office, and you mentioned in the pre-show that we've had this conversation with multiple people recently.
Absolutely.
And it's a good one, and I'll just step back and let you introduce it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's funny because obviously we are small business owners. We own a small business. We're branching out into franchising, and we've come across many people in the pursuit of, maybe looking for a franchise or, trying to figure out what they want to do with their life. And they really battle. There's a great debate in the business world. Is it better to be an entrepreneur, or is it better to be an employee? Is it something that, do you want to, can you handle the risks, and do you want the high rewards of being an entrepreneur? Or are you better to be a support person for another person in the company? And both paths have perks. They have challenges. In choosing between them often is personality.
Yeah.
It's, what's your tolerance for risk? Do you have long-term goals? So I thought it'd be a great idea to break it down today.
Yeah. And frankly, neither path is right and neither path is wrong.
Absolutely.
So it is dependent on the personality. I know that a lot of people who are just more comfortable having the security of a job and a paycheck would be a nervous wreck being an entrepreneur. Their quality of life would suffer.
Yeah.
But in truth, if you're an entrepreneur, you can't be happy doing anything else either. And even with all the risks, you just won't be happy.
Well, and some people are made for it and some people aren't. And that's okay. Because the reality is people have a personal life. And let's face it, when you're a business owner, at least starting out, some of your personal time gets really eaten up by business stuff. So I'd love to kind of break down kind of what we're doing here. There's a glamour side of owning a business. Oh, you own your own business. But the reality is a lot of businesses are all small. And small businesses might be one or two employees. And so there's some really good highs, some good pros, and there's some really good cons. So let's dig into it.
All right. I guess if you're into the entrepreneurial life, the big things are there's freedom, there's risk, and there's endless hustle. That's what you can expect.
Yeah. There is freedom. I mean, some freedom, because the reality of owning your own business is that if you needed to take a morning off, it's potentially possible.
Yeah.
Right? And if you needed to go on vacation, it's easier.
You've got unlimited earning potential.
Yeah.
So how hard do you want to work?
Well, that was one thing we would say here in the beginning of Hole in the Wall. It's like, oh, how hard would you work for $1 million? Right.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not necessarily about I don't feel like it today. It's about am I disciplined enough to do it today? Just because if we don't, this business will fail.
Yeah. And
when you are the face of your business, it's even more important that you keep that appearance up.
I know that there are people from the outside that look sometimes and they think, wow, you guys are really lucky, to have your own company, to be doing your own thing. But there's an old saying, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
That's true. Yeah.
And it is hard work.
It is. There is a misnomer that just because you own your own business, you're rich. And obviously most people who own their own business know that that's not really true. Right.
Well, I remember as a young man, I had a conversation with my dad who broke it down to this way. You can have freedom or you can have security, but it's difficult to have both.
Right. Those are very wise words. One of the pros is you do kind of have control over your own destiny, right? Entrepreneurship, that you get to set your own schedules and choose your own projects, and you get to decide how you want to scale your business, which is a pro, because when you're working for the man or somebody else for the longest time, those priorities are not yours or somebody else's. Yeah, for sure.
But as an entrepreneur, don't you find that you're more motivated to work the excess hours? I saw this somewhere, and I wish I could tell you who the quote was from, but the guys who are successful, and frankly, whether they're an employee or whether they're an entrepreneur, they tend to be working and doing things at the times of day other people are relaxing, or the times of the week I was speaking to a friend of mine in the last couple of days who used to be in sales, and he said, I sold, and he was in the flooring business. He says, I sold more flooring on Fridays because every salesman in the state was out fishing or on his boat.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, those guys in those flooring shops didn't have anybody to talk to. And he said, I sold more flooring on Fridays because he was working at times of the week when other people were relaxing. And frankly, times of the month, times of the year, you're working when other people, it's Thanksgiving holiday, but you're making phone calls or trying to make connections or maybe even doing a social event of some kind related to your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and the cool thing is about you're not capped when you're, we'll get into the cons here in a minute, but you're not capped on what your salary is going to be or what the position is going to make.
Right.
If you're working for somebody else, as an entrepreneur, you get to kind of set your own goals.
Yeah.
And you have your own freedoms for your unlimited,
Mm-hmm.
earning potential.
And that can be a big motivator. If that's your personality,
Mm-hmm.
And you're motivated by succeeding in the numerical way,
Yeah.
you like to count the money and count the numbers. That can be a very powerful incentive.
Yeah. I will say probably the one part about being an entrepreneur that really resonates with me is, completing a project, building a company to be as successful as we have. There is a sense of personal fulfillment. And being an employee, I liked building other businesses. I came from a company where my fingerprints are still to this day all over that company.
Yeah.
But being an owner in the business and being able to accomplish these goals we set out for ourselves, it is quite fulfilling.
Yeah.
And personally, from a business owner standpoint, as a personal standpoint, I like being a part of that ethos. I like being part of that.
Yeah,
that
I like
sector.
that as well. One of the other things we talked about was creative freedom.
Mm-hmm.
You design things the way you want. The logo we have is one that we decided on. The style of trucks that we use is a decision that we got to make.
Yeah.
I was actually out of town camping last week, and I had an idea, and I just sent it over to Trish, and in the social media department, and she may use it, she may not, but I have the right to offer a suggestion.
Absolutely.
And frankly, often 6 months down the road, I see it pop up in our social media.
Oh yeah.
So,
Well, there's the cool thing is we can make our own mistakes. We've made several mistakes, but
we're good at making mistakes.
we are. But being able to innovate through the mistakes, that's what's fun. And then being able to kind of look back and kind of go, man, I can't believe we just did that.
No, you made me think of the description of the type A person. They love making decisions. Type A, they live to make decisions. And if they make a wrong decision, they'll just make another one.
and it's kind of fun not to have someone that you have to necessarily, although we tee each other, we ask we don't do things solo between the two of us, but when you own your own business, there's no higher up out there you gotta ask permission for.
Well, even as an entrepreneur, there is some comfort and safety in having another somebody thinking about the business and thinking about things with you. I value that.
Well, that is because most people say that the partnerships are what the ships that sink the most or something. But for some reason, by the grace of God, our partnership has been able to sustain over 10 plus years of not sinking. And,
well, of course, we both believe it wasn't by mistake that it kind of came together, and it's been good. There's a healthy back and forth, but there's a healthy respect for one another as well.
Yeah, and frankly, we catch each other when we have off days or off months. We're just there. So it's not all rainbows and butterflies.
What?
Owning your own business, right?
What are we taking off the rose-colored glasses now?
Yeah, it's time. It's time to kind of dig into a little bit. What are some of the negatives? What are some of the cons that we're running into?
Well, I know one of them that comes to mind is you take a lot of risks, and there is financial uncertainty. And we've had it. We've had our moments in the past when the money was short or the business slowed down.
The economy takes a turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, things beyond your control. Sometimes it's within your control, but a lot of times things happen that are beyond your control. Listen, we didn't plan COVID-19.
Nope.
I can tell you nobody did.
Right.
And thank goodness we were considered essential. So we were able to keep working, although there was a dip in our overall numbers just because people didn't want strangers in their home.
We talked a little bit about being risk adverse. There is there's a leap of faith that happens when without risk, there's no reward kind of suspect. And
Yeah.
so, but you literally have to like step out of the boat and try and walk on water. I mean, it literally can be that daunting because it is financially uncertain.
Yeah.
Many of an entrepreneur have gone out there, they've taken loans out, they brought on partners they shouldn't have,
Yes.
and they ended up crashing and burning. But the biggest winners out there are the ones who took the biggest leaps of faith.
Well, so it's this. If you're going to swing for the fences, you may well hit a home run. And how glorious is that when that happens? Everyone cheers for a winner.
Right.
But there's a chance you may strike out too. Babe Ruth didn't hit a home run every time. And he struck out a fair number of times trying to hit a home run.
Yeah, but the winners are the ones who keep trying.
They
right.
just keep trying.
Keep trying.
Yes,
sure.
that's right.
And it's not necessarily normal business hours. I mean, we talked about it. I mean, I was working late last night on things for our meetings coming up at the end of this week. And you're not just sitting there doing nothing. I mean, when you were by yourself, I mean, you would work all day and then stay up all night working on invoices and paperwork.
Yeah, very, very often right after dinner, because my wife required me to be there for dinner.
Right.
I'd shower up, have dinner, and then back out the door to look at one or two jobs in the evening to line up work for next week. Yeah, that's just what it is.
Yeah, there's social events, there's networking events you got to go to.
Yeah,
and so it's not just a clock in, clock out. I've got several children, and one of them has an amazing job, and he works at a nonprofit up in near DC. And this guy has a great job, and he's an employee currently and likes being an employee.
Yeah,
he can clock in. When he clocks in, he works. And when he clocks out, he's done working and he's done thinking about work at all until the next day or the next business day.
Right, and that's a quality of life issue for him, right? So he can just walk away from it at the end of the day. Yep. And frankly, I think you've said he only works like 4 days a week.
He works 35 hours a week.
35 hours a week. So he has a lot of time to, discretionary time to do things he likes to do.
He's got a lot of personal time, and he's got full benefits, which we know is very difficult to come by as a young entrepreneur. And he's got vacation time, which we know is something we don't get. And so those are all great rewards for being an employee. But when you have when you have your own business, you just can't stick to the 9 to 5. It's just not possible.
No, not if you intend to succeed. That's for sure. And then one thing that we talked about was responsibility overload, because in the book The E-Myth, the E being the entrepreneur, there is this myth that the entrepreneur is this super person, super intelligent, super energetic, super motivated, super motivating, but it's not true. Most of us are good at some stuff. Some people are good at a lot of stuff, but nobody's good at everything. And that's the problem. When you're at the top of the heap, you are in charge of everything. Stuff we're talking about: marketing, financing, hiring, operations. Those are some really varied, different skill sets to be able to do those.
Well, you think about all the hats you have to wear as, whether you have employees or not. God forbid you're a solopreneur, you're wearing every hat. So you're actually doing the work and finding the work and marketing the work.
I can identify with that.
Yeah, right. And so all the hats you have to wear. Plus, then you got to think about the legal stuff. Oh, no, it's tax time. Did I do my books right? Have I separated my business expenses from my personal expenses?
Yeah, and the bad thing is if you've done all that correctly and your business is growing, now you need another skill set, because you now have to begin bringing in employees and grow the business again, which is a different
you
additional skill set.
Now you got to manage people. You got to train people. You got to make sure that you hold them accountable for their work. So they can keep the brand face alive. So there's a lot of overload that can happen for sure. Yeah. So let's focus just for a minute on the benefits of being an employee. Why would you want to be an employee and not necessarily an entrepreneur? Why is it fit for somebody else?
Man, I would think the number one thing that stands out there is your pay and benefits. On Friday or every other Friday, that check is going to be deposited. There's a level of comfort there. And what if you are a person with a family, you have small children, or you have kids in college even? You need income to make sure that the needs of your life are being met. Need to keep the refrigerator full, need to keep the lights on.
Yep, steady paycheck's important. And frankly, as an entrepreneur, there are days, there were several weeks where we would go without paychecks to make sure the employees got paid. And that's that is a big benefit. We talked about it earlier, but it is defined work hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, or whatever, 9 to 5, whatever the job is.
Yeah.
It's nice. People like that. They like to be able to shut off and work, and not think about work on their off time.
Mm-hmm.
We never shut off.
Yeah, and not all employees would do that. They're not. I think that there are employees who think about work when they're not there, but they're not required to. You know what I'm saying? They do. Maybe they have a little bit of an entrepreneur heart.
Yeah.
Because on Saturday they're thinking about, well, what if we did something this way on Monday?
Those are the employees I look for.
Exactly. Everybody wants that employee.
They think that even though they're not an owner, they kind of think like, oh, we've got a few of those that are just outstanding.
Yeah, I remember years ago there was a commercial about being able to do banking. Oh, this is 30 years ago, 25 years ago anyway. There was a commercial, and the idea of the commercial was business hours aren't what business hours used to be. And there's this gentleman, and he's got a cup of coffee, and he's in his jeans and his nice little shirt, and got his stocking feet, and his foot's up, and he's got his laptop out now, and he's getting ready. He's had an idea, or he's ready to do some business or some banking, and I don't remember what it was. But the point was being that your brain doesn't always work just between 9 to 5, and business, the way it's done now, isn't the way it always used to be. And I think that's probably largely true for even employees, that they don't necessarily work as 9 to 5 as they used to. Because the flex schedules came in years ago, and I have a nephew who works for a defense contractor, and he works 4 days a week, and he generally just works from home. Those
are great jobs. My wife, she works remotely. She works,
Yeah, that's a good example.
So it's very flexible. She can, there are days when she'll clock out for a couple hours to go run an errand, and then she will just work a couple hours at night to make up the time, So that flexibility is nice as an employee.
Yeah.
It is nice to have that set time.
Yeah. Well, I notice also there's less responsibility. Right. As an entrepreneur at the top of the food chain, you're ultimately responsible for everything that goes on underneath you. But if you are in the position of an employee, there are people above you that are taking that pressure.
Did you know that there are over 140 million homes in the U.S.? 97% of them have walls and ceilings that are built using drywall. The drywall repair industry is simply enormous, valued at over $13 billion a year. We're hole-in-the-wall drywall repair, and for years we have been perfecting the art of repairing drywall, developing and refining our systems, and strengthening our brand. Our business model is simple, scalable, and easy to learn. We believe it's a real game changer. We are successful drywall repair pros who decided to take our repair business to a higher level, growing both our franchise training and support to industry-leading standards. You'll benefit from our vast experience helping your franchise hit the ground running and achieve success quickly. We'll give you access to our marketing team that has created strategic programs designed to get your phone ringing and booking new business fast. Join a fast-growing leader in an exciting dynamic segment of the home service industry by franchising with Hole-in-the-Wall Drywall Repair. Start building your own business and securing your own financial future today.
Now, I will make this observation. There are people who are employees that make tremendous salaries.
Yeah.
But I will also point out this correlation. People who make a lot of money have jobs that have a lot of pressure.
A lot of stress.
Nobody's paying big money for a job that doesn't have pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. I was an employee for a good portion of my life. And there was a lot of pressure for sure. It's funny because I used to manage a lot of employees. I had 110 employees at one time underneath me. And you ran into this, it's just a job. I don't feel like going into work today. I'm going to call off. I got personal time available to me. I'm just going to call off. This is definitely one of the things you cannot do as an owner. You can't just say, I don't feel like getting up and getting to work today. I'm just going to call off. Make all my customers wait another day for my services.
Right. As
an employee, you have that freedom. You have that freedom to just be like, yeah, not feeling it today. Oh, by the way, I'm going to take next week off. Is that okay? It's because you don't have that responsibility, then you basically can just kind of take the time off. You have the vacation time to do it. Just call day of, like literally, hey boss, I'm not feeling good. I'm not coming in. I've not lived in that world for a while, so it's difficult to kind of think about. And we have got employees now. That happens occasionally, but there definitely is less responsibility, which means that you can have some more free time in the afternoon.
Yeah, less responsibility. And that, to me, that goes with a little bit less control.
Yeah.
You know, those two items kind of go hand in hand. I mean, you're essentially following company rules and their policies and, you know, the company's priorities.
Yeah.
But that's what they're paying you for. That's what the paycheck is for.
And if you work hard and you become a key essential employee of a company, you have a growth track. You have a trajectory that you can grow in the company, especially if you're with a good company that sets their employees up for future growth to make more money.
Right.
That's great.
And those companies are providing 401ks, retirement plans.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in a company for your working life and you're taking advantage of those opportunities for investing and building a retirement, it's not bad. You get done, you walk away from the job at retirement, and you have enough money to carry you for the rest of your life.
Listen, many corporations have CEOs that started off in the company, you know, years ago, and then the company paid for schooling. They had tuition reimbursement. They allowed them to go for education. And over the course of years, I mean, back in our day, we live in Orlando, so it's Lockheed Martin. And how many people are career people?
Yeah.
They're there forever.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's just, it's nice to have that security. And then, of course, those guys, they got pensions. And so now they get to retire, although those are few and far between nowadays.
Yeah.
So, but what are some of the negatives? What are some of the reasons why you may not want to be an employee?
I'm thinking you could have limited earning potential. I mean, jobs usually pay what they pay. Now, if it's a good job, it pays good. And again, we just covered that. If that's your cup of tea, if that's what you're comfortable with, no problem with that. There's absolutely no shame in making a good salary.
But there are caps on things. The job pays what the job pays, right?
Yeah.
So you're not going to be a lower employee. You're not going to be someone who's on, maybe like our techs are in the field. Our field techs, there's a cap on how much they can make, right? You know, it may be a good wage, but there still is a ceiling. We can only pay them as much as the job makes the company.
Yeah. So your raises, and even I could tie in promotions with that, can come slower than you'd really like sometimes. So you're, you know, working, hoping to get more money, hoping to get a promotion to do something else. Yeah. And sometimes, you know, somebody else is there, or there's no promotion to be had. So that could be a limiting, you know, a negative.
Yeah. You know, and I've always, as a boss and a manager and a director for many years, I've always thought there was an unfairness about the fact that when someone quits a job, we expect them to give a 2-week notice. That's just cursory. That's just polite. Just give you a 2-week notice.
Right.
But I can't tell you how many employees I've had to let go that I gave them 0 notice.
Yeah, you're out.
You know, so there's no security. And even people, especially now, you've got a government job and all of a sudden things are switching and the eyeballs are on the government. So people are getting let go.
Yeah.
So you might think you have job security, but you really don't. And the small business world is taking a real big turn up lately because during COVID, people lost their jobs. And they said, well, I'm just going to start my own business. And they did. You know, I remember there was an artist at Disney, he's one of the street artists that would do the caricatures and stuff for their customers. And when Disney had to close down during COVID, they weren't allowed to really have employees. He didn't have a job. And as an artist, what do you do? Well, he ended up now creating his own small business where he had a gallery and he started making, you know, pictures and drawings for people from home so he could create his own living. So he never went back to the workspace when COVID was over. So we lost that talent in the workforce because he started his own business.
I want to touch on this real briefly too. Working for a company, there is a sense of security there, but now we're reaching into the emotional. Okay. So there's an emotional comfort in that security, but is it real security? And I'll tell a quick story. When I came out of high school, I went to work at an aircraft factory. We made aircraft seats for airliners. We made galleys, in-flight entertainment systems. It was a good job, good company. But looking back on it years later, the security I felt there and the other, I don't know, there must have been 1,400 or 1,500 employees at this company. They all felt pretty secure with that. But in fact, looking back, I can see where that company was only in business because somebody sold something. So somebody upstream sold, 50 ship sets of seats to Saudi Airlines or Qantas or United, somebody. But if a competitor got that job, then we had layoffs. So it is an emotional, I feel secure, but were you really?
Right.
And even now, even with our business, James, I realize that nothing happens until somebody sells something. Our front office picks up the phone every day because we have a lot of people that call. They need our service. But somebody has to sell that job at the front, or one of our estimators, or you or I out just, burning shoe leather, which we're going to do a podcast on soon.
Right.
Somebody has to go out and sell that customer and sell that job so that our crew has something to do. And, I'll bet they have an emotional sense of security that I have a job. I have a check coming on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very true. I think it's important that we understand, who we are as individuals. And I believe that people can we all start off as employees. You just gave you were an employee.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
But eventually you do make the jump. And we're working with several candidates now in the franchise world where they're trying to think, do I want to continue working for somebody else, or do I want to, blaze my own path?
Yeah, they're at a crossroads.
They're at a crossroads, and we meet them every week.
Yeah.
And our job is not to sell them a franchise. Our job is to say, is this the right solution for you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to work with a company that's going to help you grow as an entrepreneur, or do you want to just be an employee? And that's really their own personal choice.
And I dare say that making the wrong choice for yourself could create a lot of discomfort either way. If you really are an entrepreneur and you just can't, we describe it as, you're kind of standing on the dock with your job and you want to kind of work the boat over a little bit closer so you can kind of get one foot in and then kind of transition safely over to that boat. But if you really are an entrepreneur and you can't make the leap, that itch will always be there.
Right.
And you'll be uncomfortable just taking a job. If you're not an entrepreneur and you jump off, I think you could be equally uncomfortable. Which reminds me, I wanted to ask you, because this would be about your personal life, but you started out as an employee. You worked for many, many years as an employee. You had a good job, made good living. You had a high paying job, but it was tons of responsibility with it, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So I know that you were looking for the next thing. I've heard that. But did you know the next thing was going to be entrepreneur, or when you kind of saw that, it touched something in you? How did that work for you?
Well, I had the real pleasure of working for some amazing companies. And I saw that, I was 11 years with the entertainment company I was with. And I grew from just a supervisor all the way to the director of operations, managed, 5 warehouses across the country. I was gone. I was traveling 2-3 weeks at a time. So I would miss recitals and I'd miss birthdays and family functions because I was always gone.
Right.
Because listen, in entertainment, they always say the show must go on. It's true. That show is going to start when it starts, and you have to be ready for it. And it was stressful. It was a time in my life where, I was young. I could do it. It was great. But I was absolutely getting burnt out. I was feeling the burn of it. And frankly, I did not like the fact that we treated employees like they were expendable. I mean, there was many times during the 2009 boom, it was like, well, listen, if you don't like your job, you can go hit the door because there's 20 other people outside that want your job. And I was the boss that had to make hard decisions, and I didn't like it. And when my time was up, I knew it. It was one of those, I'm feeling it. This is not the right place for me anymore. And I was really trying to think through what I wanted. I actually applied for other jobs. I was looking for really high-end jobs. I was looking for.
But were you considering at all doing some kind of business on your own?
I wasn't, because I didn't want to start something from scratch. I didn't want to start from the very, very beginning. And it really wasn't until you and I met and I realized that that Hornwall had such an amazing opportunity, not just to grow as a business, but to help our communities, that I was like, this is absolutely something that I can get my teeth in. And with my experience building these companies over the years, I had a really strong, vision. Like if you're a golfer, you can see your shot before you swing. I really saw who we could be as a company, 10 plus years ago.
So there was an entrepreneur in there just waiting to awaken.
Yeah, but it wasn't until I met you that I had the opportunity to do it. Because we've said multiple times, I would not go out and start my own drywall business. I just wouldn't do it. And I wanted to be your best, your best partner I could be. But if it wasn't for you starting the race, I wouldn't be here helping you finish the race.
Yeah. Yeah. Great conversation, James.
So let's just kind of wrap up here real fast. When you think about, do you want to own your own business? Are you comfortable being an entrepreneur? Do you want to own your own business? Or are you comfortable being an employee? Let's think about, how do you decide, what does it come down to? I think it comes down to a few things. Do you crave freedom and control? Do you crave the potential for high rewards? Entrepreneurship might be your path.
Mm-hmm.
Do you prefer stability and structure and financial security? Well, if that's you, then maybe it's better to be an employee because you don't get that as an entrepreneur. You have a lot of risk.
Yeah. And maybe you've been an employee and you've been in a structured environment that you just chafe against. You're just like, I just yearn to breathe free.
Yeah. So you're like me, you start off, being an employee, but when it all boils down, you find yourself wanting to be an entrepreneur, start your own business, to create your own things. So I think that those are all key decisions, and those are very personal decisions. And those are things that, each person has to kind of think through on their own with their family. Because as married men, it's not just about us; it's about our families. How can we support our families and our children?
Yeah.
So important topic. I want like everyone to kind of think about it. If you don't have your own business yet, think through: is it for you or not? If it is, then let's start working through those goals and see if you can make that happen for yourself. If not, just be the best employee you can. Be people that we respect all day long, because they kill themselves for this company and companies we know. So cool, man. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, enjoyed that.
I love that.
Great conversation.
Thanks, Bill. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
We'd like to thank you for listening to the Hole in the Wall Business Podcast with Bill and James. We'd love for you to join our Facebook group and keep the conversation going. If you'd like to learn more about us and our business, check us out at holeinthewall.com. If you'd like to learn more about how to start a Hole in the Wall franchise, go to holeinthewallfranchising.com.